Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Sparring Partners Podcast. My name is Cody McKinley, and as always, I'm joined by Mr. Brad Jones. Mr. Brad Jones, say hello to the people.
What up, people? Glad to be back another week.
Yep, glad to be back another week. After several scheduling conflicts in the busy lives of your two co-hosts, we bring you a Saturday morning episode. This is rare, unprecedented times. Actually, we may have done it before. I can't remember, but I think we've
it's
done
a
it
first for us, but
it's a first.
be nice.
So later, if you're viewing it now, later today, we've got a certain card we'll get to later on in the show. And just real quick, we'll do our housekeeping at the beginning. If you like the video, please like, subscribe, and share it if you like it, or if you know someone who likes MMA and you've stumbled upon this video somehow, you've searched the keywords MMA, sparring, partners. We're brought to you by filmfightfreaks.com, which, according to Evan, is going through a little bit of a redesign. So the film portion of the site apparently is going away and will be refocused into an entirely mixed martial arts website.
Hey, just Fight Freaks.
Fightfreaks.com. Actually, I don't know. I'm not going to publish I don't know what he's going to call it. It could be Fight Freaks. Fight Freaks ain't terrible. That's not terrible. That's not a terrible name. You just drop the first part and you leave the middle and the last part, and then also the .com. So that's news for the website. You can visit the website down below. You can see our show notes for the show. You can see Evan's predictions and fights to make after the cards, and you can see my predictions of the prelims, soon to be Bellator main cards, and some other projects. So, that's all good fun. But Brad, what do you say we hop right into it? And we're gonna have to travel back in time. By the time our viewers are seeing this, we'll be traveling back in time a week, 7 days.
Yeah, boy.
Vegas 19, Blaydes Lewis. Then we'll move on to Rozenstruik and Gane, and it was a slow news week. But we've got some stuff going on. So let's move right along. Blaydes Lewis, UFC Vegas 19. We'll start with the main event. Derrick Lewis, Curtis Blaydes, and I don't know how you felt about it, but to me, it was everything. Heartbreaking loss. It had it all. And an uncrowned number one contender, a dude who looked better than. Dude, when did Curtis Blaydes learn to strike like that? His striking looked awesome. His footwork, his volume. He was beating Lewis in the striking. He honestly, I don't know if he has the type of striking pace, because we know he can go 25 minutes. I mean, he can go all night wrestling. It's what he does, but I don't know if he has that type of striking endurance. I bet he does, because he looked physically in really good shape as well. But he probably could have never shot a takedown the entire fight and won a decision.
Yeah. Yes, I remember not that long ago, Curtis Blaydes TKO'd JDS standing up in a stand-up only affair in a main event. Took him out on the feet. You wrapped it up really good with how it had a little bit of everything. I mean, you had a crushing defeat for Curtis Blaydes, a guy who was, I mean, this fight was made as a win for him against a guy that didn't have good wrestling, has very bad wrestling. That would be a nice way for him to wrestle his way to victory and cement himself as the number one contender at heavyweight. Nope, that's not how it happens at heavyweight. You shoot one sloppy takedown in a fight that you were dominating, and you get flatline dead.
Yeah, yeah,
In all honesty, though, like that's probably the best thing that could have happened for the division. I mean, we talked about it before. Curtis Blaydes was in a bad situation of having beaten everyone else except for Francis, positioning himself like right outside of number one contender status, and then looking down the barrel of not getting a title shot for the rest of the year. So, in all honesty, Derrick Lewis winning probably best case scenario for the UFC. Take out Curtis Blaydes as your number one contender. Derrick Lewis has no interest in being the number one contender. He's talking about wanting to fight Overeem, who just got knocked out. So yeah, it was great. Brutal knockout from Derrick Lewis. Love those. The man's a knockout machine. Just stands up whenever he wants. Crushing defeat for Curtis Blaydes, but at the same time, Curtis Blaydes, super young guy for the heavyweight division. Very young guy. He will still be here when the Derrick Lewises and the Overeems and the Stipes are all gone in the next couple of years. Curtis Blaydes is looking at like potentially another 5 to 10 years in the heavyweight division if his career goes on the trajectory that it's been on. That being said, he could hit a rough patch and get booted out the door real quick because, as we've explained, he does not have a very good relationship with Dana White.
no, and that's the thing about Curtis Blaydes is he's very much a John Fitch heavyweight, where if he wins, he keeps his spot. But if Curtis Blaydes loses, it doesn't even have to be a lot. I believe John Fitch lost once,
Yeah,
or he lost. Yeah, he got knocked out by Johnny Hendricks,
yeah,
and then got cut because he was not doing so great with the boss man. And when you've never spoken to the boss man, you don't even have the opportunity to put your best foot forward. And then also, you've never spoken to the boss man, and the only impression he has of you is that he's pissed that you did a shitty fight, and also he knows you talk not good about fighter pay. So all the things, all the things that Dana White hates most are on your shoulders. So for a fighter like Curtis Blaydes, who isn't, it's one of those things where he's not even particularly controversial. He's like a really soft-spoken dude and not even really all that bombastic. He's honest about what he thinks he can do with his skill set, but nothing. I mean, he's not Covington running around here. I mean, he's just like, I'm good at wrestling people, and yeah, for the first round, well, as long as it lasted, I thought Blades was hitting us with the bait and switch because he looked so good standing up. I was like, this guy's not going to have to wrestle at all. Granted, he wasn't landing anything devastating, but he didn't.
He was clearly winning.
He was clearly winning because Lewis was so clearly just sitting back and being like, all right, I got a knee and I got an uppercut.
That's what he does.
That's what I need here. Yeah, it was and not to, I was heartbroken for Blades, but at the same time, Derrick Lewis just became a major player at heavyweight.
Number 2. He's number 2 in the division right now. It's Stipe, number 1 Francis, number 2 Derrick Lewis. He is as high in the division as you can be without fighting for a belt.
Now, let's say that Stipe loses, and he loses in bad way. Okay. Does the UFC dare book an Ngannou Lewis rematch for the heavyweight belt?
I go out on a limb here and say yes. I was debating with some people on Reddit this week about this. I was saying after that performance and as the ways their careers have gone separately since their first fight, I would personally be very interested in a Derrick Lewis and Francis Ngannou rematch at this point.
Yeah,
Daniel brought up a good point. They're both somewhat counter strikers to an extent, but like definitely more so Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis makes no he doesn't lie about anything. He's like, yo, I'm here to land one punch, and that's it. All I need is one strike, and you're dead. Francis, just goes running, motherfuckers, throws his hands like a madman. Um, yeah, I absolutely would be interested in that rematch. I just do not think that it would go the same way. And if it does, whatever. It's like we're at a point where that rematch I think is inevitable. I mean, you can't deny it if the guys are at the very top of the division. Um, yeah, I mean, like all these fights are interesting, dude. Imagine Derrick Lewis versus Stipe, or Derrick Lewis versus Jon Jones. Derrick Lewis versus Jon Jones could be like super interesting. I mean, on paper, you'd be like, nah, not really. I think it could be.
no, I
I
think
think
it's
that
very interesting. I think I think that well, one thing real quick, I was going to agree with you. Um, more like agreement partners podcast because I also would sign up for a Lewis Ngannou rematch because I don't recall seeing them fight. They were in the octagon together for 15 minutes. I don't know who the better fighter is.
Mhm.
Uh, Derek Lewis got his hand raised, but and also it was so boring. It was so boring. It's not like I remember Chet Congo versus Sean Jordan. Okay, I remember that fight for how boring it was. There was a level of inactivity in Lewis Ngannou that I genuinely can't remember. I'm a hardcore fan, and I genuinely like. It's a thing that you have to like. Oh yeah, they did fight.
Yeah,
So
and
like
I
the
feel like
casual
that's the
fan,
sentiment of the hardcore fan
yeah,
base.
the
They're like, oh,
casual
we forgot
fan
that happened.
casual fan has no idea they fought. The
No.
UFC probably would be better served to not reference it, like just call it a rematch and like the promos and stuff, but do not throw that giant two next to them like they typically do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and yeah. I was gonna bring this up after my brain just quit working there for a second. Jon Jones at heavyweight against Derrick Lewis, I think, is much more competitive than people might imagine. Really.
Oh yeah,
I,
absolutely.
I mean, truth be told, Jones has definitely been clipped at light heavyweight, but there's a reason weight classes exist. If you want to learn why light heavyweight is light heavyweight and heavyweight's heavyweight, do yourself a favor and watch Stipe Miocic versus Fabio Maldonado. That's the reason why weight classes exist. Fabio Maldonado got his head blasted off his shoulders by Stipe. And Stipe's not even a big heavyweight.
Mm.
He's like 240. Maldonado, I think, was maybe around 220.
Dude, I would even be interested in Derrick Lewis versus Stipe. All three of these fights are interesting to me. I mean, Derrick Lewis versus Stipe, John versus Derrick Lewis, the rematch with Francis.
No, but let's be honest. There is at this point, due to the rhetoric of Jones, there is as much a chance that Jones is his primary concern is weightlifting and he likes to train martial arts sometimes. It's an equal chance that that is his new life than fighting in the UFC at heavyweight. Like I know that there is a lot of Jones's PR as far as where he fits at heavyweight has been an absolute wreck. I was just discussing this today. He's like, all right, take my belt, I'm going to heavyweight. The UFC's like, cool, man. Yeah, that sounds great. And then he's like, actually, I'm not fighting at heavyweight unless you pay me more. UFC's like, okay, man. Well, I mean, you gave up your belt of your own accord and you said you wanted to go to heavyweight. So, I mean, you don't have to, I guess. Then Jones like, well, no, I put on 40 pounds to go to heavyweight. And then the MMA community is like, cool, man, way to go. Can't wait to see you fight at heavyweight. And then Jon Jones is like, hey, I would love to fight for the UFC again. But if the numbers aren't right, just might not never happen. Dude, he has been an absolute PR nightmare. And not in the regular Jon Jones PR nightmare. Like, no one can get excited for anything because he won't tell us what the hell is going on.
Yeah, it's true. But at the same time, it's like he doesn't know who he's going to fight until this Francis and Stipe rematch gets done. And then after that, no matter what happens, the UFC is well aware of what they have on their hands with Jon going up to heavyweight. They're going to make that work. A Jon versus anyone in a heavyweight title fight is a big deal. People will tune in for that, especially if it's against Stipe or a Francis that just knocks Stipe out. They'll
Yeah.
get it done. They'll make it happen.
Well, is he not? Didn't he also just put out a thing that he's going to be trying to watch uh Blachowicz Adesanya?
Yes, but that's another thing of him just like he's always getting at Izzy any chance he gets. He got so much beef with Izzy, they just be jabbing each other for no reason. That is a non-factor though. I mean, you can look at Jon and be like, it'd take forever for that dude to drop the 40 pounds of muscle he just put back on and go back. It's just dumb. The timing doesn't line up on that, but we'll see. What happened. If Izzy goes out there and just blasts Blachowicz, gets a second belt, and it's just like, Jon, what up? Let's go. We'll see. I would think, though, the most likely of all the scenarios, though, in my own personal opinion, would be that Izzy goes up to heavyweight chasing Jon rather than Jon going back down. Izzy has fought at heavyweight before, and he has been talking about going up and fighting at heavyweight. And I have a feeling that if he would knock out Blachowicz, the UFC would totally do it. They'd be like, sure, you got 2 belts, go on and fight Jon at heavyweight for your 3rd belt. Tell me they would totally do that. Izzy would be undefeated, 21-0, 2 belts, and then you match him up against a heavyweight champion, Jon Jones. Oh my God, it'd be 2 million pay-per-view buys. It'd be insane.
That's just, I mean, yeah, it would, but like, bro,
It's dumb as all hell. I mean, it's dumb.
come on, man. It's like, listen, you can have I mean, I love like, I love how the discussion of Blaydes Lewis has devolved into this, but listen, again, weight classes exist for a reason. Adesanya walks around at like 210 pounds.
Mhm.
That type of approach, like the Adesanya would be truly special indeed if he can carry his skill set to heavyweight. I am not sure he'll have the stopping power at heavyweight though. Like,
no, of course not.
no, he's not. And his game, while it's not like a slugger type style,
Sniper.
but the sniper hits.
Mhm.
The sniper has to connect. And at 2 weight classes up at heavyweight, that is just like, okay, how can I stack all the cards not in my favor?
Yes.
That's
And
just,
it's like these aren't even 3 weight classes that are like right next to each other, separated by 10 pounds. It's already going to be crazy enough to see if Izzy can go up to light heavyweight, which, reminder, is a 20-pound gap between middleweight and light heavyweight. If he can go up 20 pounds without putting on any muscle and be able to translate and win against Blachowicz. Because the truth is, if Blachowicz wins against Izzy, all that talk is done. There is no interest in Jon fighting Blachowicz or going back to 205 or anything. If Blachowicz beats Izzy, all that talk is gone. Izzy just goes back to middleweight, and we just move on with our lives. So, yeah, that's basically where we are. The heavyweight and light heavyweight and middleweight are all jumbled into a giant tangled mess right
now. So moving on with the card, I guess, because there's no way to untangle it until just time plays out, Yeah. Anyway, Lewis moves to 2, Blaydes moves to 3. Cool, man. In the co-main event, you had Kunitskaya and Vieira in a really weird decision. I don't know. How did you feel about the decision?
It was weird. It was the way that all these judges scored that round of was the third round, right? All on the
Yeah,
ground.
dude.
They
Vieira
seemed to be,
dominated her. Vieira
yeah, and they were
dominated
like,
her
not
until the
about it.
last. They're like, well, Kunitskaya did like try to hit her the last 10 seconds.
Yeah, I was right at the end, and they were like, that's enough. It's
That's
like
enough.
Kalen Vieira just like wasn't being active enough on the ground, I guess, for them. But in the end, I
It's
don't want
like
to be shitty about it, but it's like, what kind of impact on the division did that fight really have? And neither one of
none,
them,
none.
none.
I'm
So
an
it's like, okay,
individual
whatever.
fighter. Listen, I hate win bonuses. I hate them. But at the
That's
very
true.
least, I wish they would go to the right person.
That's
You
true.
know,
Yeah,
so Vieira has her back for how long? That
four
it's
and a half minutes.
if positional control is at any point a part of the scoring system, which it is, having someone's back is the most dominant position in a fight. Like, yeah, whatever. You're right. It's not like overall big picture. It doesn't really matter who won because women's divisions on the whole are just so locked down right now. Strawweight being really the only one that is at
Yep,
all kind
competitive.
of like we could see someone uh beating
Weili Zhang.
there we go. Thank you. There were like four different variations of those
Hmm.
noises going on in my head, and I couldn't pick the right one. Um and then yeah, we moved down the card. Derek Minner. Dude's come out of nowhere with a 26-11 record and looks so good. Looked so good against Charles Rosa. A thing I probably should have looked into, but I didn't. Charles Rosa, what was he coming back from?
I also do not know. I don't know.
I know I saw a thumbnail on YouTube that said he wasn't given a very high percentage chance to come back and fight again, but I just forgot to check into that until just now. But anyway, Derek Minner filled in against one of the contender series guys, really hot prospect out of Canada, and Minner submitted him via guillotine super quick. So he got an opportunity to come back, and then he just dominated Charles Rosa. Didn't expect it. Didn't expect it. Someone who comes in short notice, gets a quick finish. Sometimes they're a little bit flash in the pan. They're able to capitalize on that kind of unknown factor. But Derek Minner looked every bit of UFC ready as anyone else on the card. His ground skills were sick. Did you watch any of that one?
Yeah. It was a cool fight. I don't have too much to say about it. I'm not familiar with either man really. But yeah, good fight. I liked it.
Well, give me your thoughts on Chris Dawkins and Alexei Olenek.
First of all, just the record alone of Olynyk is just outrageous. I mean, good lord, that
It's
MMA
insane.
record, 59-15, is just insane. Um, Here's the thing, Alexei Olynyk. I'm not even going to say that he was ever an elite UFC heavyweight, but it is clear that he is no longer even a top 10 UFC heavyweight. And I would say the end of his career is probably approaching soon. I'm not sure how exactly he eyes it, but he's been getting beat up pretty badly lately. I mean, he got that bad TKO loss to Derrick Lewis. It's murked here again.
No, dude.
It's an old man that's taken a bunch of damage. I don't like seeing old men get beat up repeatedly and take a bunch of TKO damage.
Dude, Olenek's gonna be fighting on his way to the funeral home. You know that, and I know that. That's it.
You know,
That's just
like transition to grappling. Like go grapple for Chael or something. I don't want to see you against a young murderer that's gonna TKO you on the feet, or like
oh
a
yeah.
Derrick Lewis that's gonna be like slamming hammers into you.
UFC matchmakers don't give a shit about grapplers. They're
No.
like, oh, you're an aged grappler? Well, here's a young stud who hits real hard and
Dude.
bigger than you, so he's probably gonna be able to stuff those takedowns.
Olynyk, if he's gonna stay, needs to be fighting like Arlovsky or something.
I would love that fight. I would love that fight. That's a really great fight.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, and by definition, Olenek is no longer a top 10 heavyweight because Dawkins moved to number 10.
Good.
So he's come onto the scene really quick. He debuted last year. He's had 3 fights. This was his 3rd fight in the UFC, which is really impressive that you got into the top 10 with only 3 fights. But
Hey man, that's how they do it at heavyweight, son. I
well,
mean, you got
that's what I was gonna
Rozenstruik and
say.
Gane pulled that off.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I don't know if that says more about the heavyweight division or how the UFC feels about the upside of Chris Dawkins, but he looked really good with his hand speed and his power. Um, moving on, Phil Hawes, Nasruddin Imanov. How did you feel about that fight?
Another one that's fine. I'm not particularly invested in either man. Cool fight. Whatever.
Did you see anything in the fight that impressed you?
No. No, but that was also one where I'm not like I wasn't tuned in like the Arlovsky fight against Aspinall. I'm in there, right? I'm familiar with these guys. I'm paying close attention. Phil Hawes fight, I may have been making a sandwich, not paying that close attention, going to the bathroom. Then Olenek, I'm back reinvested, paying close attention. So while it was on, I was not paying the closest of attention to Phil Hawes or Nasserine Imanov. No, I'll admit.
Well, I'll say this at least. Phil Hawes did his Phil Hawes thing. He looked like a world beater until he got cracked, and then he looked real rough. Phil Hawes stand up has come a long way since his first stint on Contender Series, and he's looked really good up until then. Nasruddin Imavov, is that? Yeah, my contacts are back, maybe. Imavov just had such trouble dealing with Hawes, who is just a super powerful wrestler. Uh, Imavov was able to catch Hawes a few times in the in betweens on clinch breaks or in close with some brutal elbows, really just crushing elbows on the inside, and Hawes was legit hurt. So in terms of that's why it's majority decisions, because in terms of like if you were scoring the fight by as a whole, where you took into account only the high points where an opponent, where a fighter is close to immediate victory, you would have given it to Imavov because he had 2 or 3 moments in the fight where Hawes was legit hurt. But Hawes powered through, used his overall skill set, and it's one of those performances where you saw a guy get, Hawes got an 18-second KO his last fight, and as soon as he got pushed on the feet, he was like, "Time to go back to why I'm here," and it was good. And then, yeah, you already brought it up. Let's move on to Tom Aspinall, Andrei Arlovsky. Give me your thoughts on those 2 guys.
When was the last time Arlovsky got submitted? I cannot think of it. Not off the top of my head, especially not in the second UFC run.
Yeah, I would look it up. Oh,
that was fairly shocking to me. I did expect the younger Tom Aspinall, who's kind of on a roll right now, to blast Arlovsky because, as we've discussed, Arlovsky is clearly established at this point as he is the guy, like we talked about before. You've got these guys like the Chris Dawkins, like Cyril Gane, and like Jairzinho Rozenstruik that come into the UFC. They're young in their MMA careers. They get like 2 big knockouts, maybe even just one, and the UFC is like, all right, it's time for you to fight Arlovsky. They give him Arlovsky. The people
it's like the Rancor, dude. It's like the Rancor. It's time for you to face the Arlovsky.
It is. And then these young dudes blast Arlovsky out of the water. And then they're like, okay, now you're a top 10 heavyweight. They do this every single. I mean, you can go down the top 10. I want to say almost every single person in the top 10 had to obliterate Arlovsky to get where they were. Stipe, you can go down the line. Francis, all these guys. They had to fight Arlovsky. They murked him. So, yes, I was not surprised to see Tom Aspinall Merk on Arlovsky, but I was definitely surprised to see him submit him. That was pretty shocking to me.
Dude, he moves
Awesome.
in to a
30-20 record for Arlovsky. 30-20.
Oh my God. So Aspinall moves into a rare club. How many other men you think have submitted Arlovsky?
One or two.
You were right the first time with one. Do you know who that is?
No.
Josh Barnett. Or naked choke.
Yeah. Was that in the UFC? They fought in the UFC.
Yes.
It was a rematch. Yeah.
I believe it was.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Tom Aspinall, add him to the list. He's a new young contender and heavyweight. Yeah.
He also lost. Aspinall did not win out in the most confusing name to say equation. Would you like to know who that is?
Yes, please.
A 2018 loss to Shamil Abdurakhimov.
I remember that one.
Yeah, it was a decision loss.
Yeah, Derrick Lewis had to fight that guy too. Very boring fight.
Yeah. So you were impressed by Aspinall.
Yes, I was impressed by Aspinall. Definitely excited to see what him and Chris Dawkins can do as elite heavyweights now that they're kind of throwing them up there with the big boys next.
Yeah, dude, I was super impressed. I was super impressed with Aspinall. How quick and the way, because a lot of people think of Aspinall as this striker, which he is. He's good striking, but I believe he has trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu longer than any sort of striking art. So the fact that he was just on Arlovsky's neck so quick, and I feel like the extra little bit of time was really necessary for Aspinall in the case, Oh, God damn it, dude! My mic was hooked up. There it is. There we go. Power running low.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really impressed. The way that Aspinall, if you watch his posture when he gets Arlovsky against the fence, he just glides on him, man. He just glides on him straight to the back. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at these. Here's a statement from Curtis Blaydes. Sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail. This game has a razor thin margin for error, and I just got caught. It happens. Props to Derrick. No shame in it. My head still held high. Held high.
That's all factually accurate.
I mean, it's all factually accurate. It's also like, I mean, I understand you're not supposed to be bombastic after a loss, but that shit's boring, man.
Yeah.
There is zero. That is all cliches.
Yeah.
This was an entire statement entirely of cliches.
It's Curtis Blaydes, my guy. He doesn't have the most fun personality,
game, dude. No.
Yeah.
He just looked at a list of cliches and he's like, okay, I got to break out the book.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to go to the failure section and hammer and nail. I like that one. I've always liked that one. My father said it and his father said it. And then in the prelims, how many of these prelims you check out?
I checked out the Eddie Wineland fight, which was sad, and it was sad.
It was.
I watched Zahabi fight. That was dope. And that may have been all. No, I watched the Arosa and Landwehr fight. Those were the fights that I watched off.
I was about to clown on you for not tuning into Rosa Landwehr. I
Yeah,
told
I
you
did watch that.
beforehand that one was going to be a banger, and for
Yeah.
all what was it, 56 seconds of it, it
Yeah.
delivered.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
that one was wild, man.
yeah,
They
it
were
did.
all good.
So
It was good prelims. They were all finishes.
you did not get a chance to catch the debut of Casey O'Neill.
No, I did not.
Dude, she looked good. She looked really good. Granted, Shanna Dobson,
4 and 5.
4-5. But hey, Shanna Dobson is one of those fighters that has only gotten better. It's not like she came in with a skill set and just kept it. She has improved in a bunch of different areas. Uh, Mainly her striking, which Shanna Dobson has always been a banger, but she's improved in her counter wrestling and her ground game and stuff too. And Casey O'Neill just sort of overwhelmed her. O'Neill's young, out of uh, Australia, I think. She's of Scottish descent or Irish descent. She's in Australia or New Zealand, somewhere in there. Um, yeah, she looked great. I recommend giving it a watch. It was a good action fight.
Dope.
And to have a nice, young blood at 125 pounds, which is 125 women's and 115 women's are as good, if not better, than a lot of weight classes in the male divisions as far as competitiveness and stuff. So,
Yeah.
and then yeah, dude, Ayman Zahabi needed that win. He needed it bad.
Oh, yeah.
He needed it really bad. And from the early goings, Draco Rodriguez was kind of outworking him there. It was not looking great for Zahabi, but he waited for his moment and delivered. So
Yeah.
good on him. Ayman Zahabi, really, he had future EFL bantamweight written all over him.
Yeah.
Now we've discussed Blaydes Lewis. Now later today speaking, when you're watching this, a viewer speaking to you, if you're watching this on the day it comes out, later today we get treated to Rozenstruik Gane. Now, this is a card that has been eaten alive by the worldwide pandemic known as COVID, and also bad luck through injury. But that doesn't mean we don't have some pretty solid fights lined up for Saturday. Of course, the main event, we have Rozenstruik, we have Gane. What do you think about that main event? And who do you think comes out on top?
I really like that main event, and I will juxtapose it with the Lewis and Blaydes main event. In terms of style matchups, it is the polar opposites of that last fight. We're going into Lewis and Blaydes. We're like, all right, we know Blaydes is going to wrestle because they told us that's what he does, and we know Lewis is going to chill and wait for his one big shot to put him out. Going into this, for multiple reasons, but one we discussed, both these guys basically shot straight up to the top of the heavyweight division with like minimal wins and minimal exposure to us. So I have no idea what to expect in this fight. Cyril Gane is still only 7-0 as a MMA fighter, relatively inexperienced in terms of his MMA career. He in the UFC now had that decision against Tanner Boser, didn't finish him, and then he had 2 submissions. So I'm like, who knows? Cyril Gane, maybe he wants to take this fight to the ground and try to work some ground stuff and go for a submission on Rozenstruik. Rozenstruik also primarily a striker. The longest we've seen him was that 25 minutes against Overeem. Other than that, all his fights, relatively quick knockouts on the feet. So I don't know what to expect in this fight. I've been going back and forth all week. I do expect a finish, but I do not know. I don't know how this fight's going to go. I mean, I expect Cyril Gane to. I don't know. I can't. I don't know what I expect
Yeah,
from him. I truly
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. I feel the same way, and it's one of those fights where even when you look at it, you study it a little bit, you take into account different things. At the end of the day, I still just got to go with my gut. My gut tells me Gane.
Mm,
My gut tells me that there's something special about Gane.
yeah.
Granted, I've never seen him lose, so that could be the reason why. Uh, I can't imagine him doing so. But also, he's 7-0 in a main event for a reason. The matchmakers know fights. So if this is the guy they're wanting to push, there's a reason. And granted, he's super marketable in a variety of ways, but also he can fight his ass off. I mean, he's only 7-0, but he has wins over name dudes, and he did it well. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. And I'm just like you. I have no idea. For some reason, my gut is really leaning Gone.
Same. My gut tells me Gone, but like my mind keeps being like, I guess just because I've seen Jarzinho more. My mind keeps telling me like maybe Cyril Gane tries to close that distance. Rozenstruik has a bunch of these weird knockouts where guys are trying to close the distance on him, and he backs away and just kind of hits them with this fadeaway that just like deads him, kind of like the Arlovsky fight.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think in my mind like that could happen. Cyril Gane could try to close the distance, clinch. Jarzinho could hit him with the counter and put him out. But who
Yeah, it
knows?
could.
Anything could
But Gone,
happen.
I know, but Gone, um, and that's an entirely plausible scenario. But one thing that's really impressive about Gone being only 7-0, he's very patient.
Mm,
So I just am having trouble because when I imagine Rozenstruik winning, it is in those scenarios where it's a wild exchange, people kind of throwing caution to the wind, and Rozenstruik, uh, every time except for one, comes out on top. But Gone typically doesn't let that happen too much.
yeah.
So um, these are the things that make great fights and great main events.
Yeah.
Is I just have no idea. That I'm pretty confident we could get a finish, but again, um, Gon being fighting the way that he fights, it could go 25. So
Yeah. Still a
we'll
lot of
see.
question marks around them both.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that in a main event.
Yeah.
Nikita Krylov taking on Ankalaev. Ankalaev.
Magomed Ankalaev.
Yeah, Ankalaev. What do you think about this one?
That's another banger. I'm definitely leaning towards Ankalaev coming off that 4 times rescheduled fight with Kutalaba, where he just obliterated him finally when they did get the matchup.
Yeah, yeah.
And Nikita Krylov is a guy that has shown flashes of brilliance, but on the whole, usually ends up disappointing
Mhm.
on his biggest stages.
That's true.
And that is why at this stage I do expect him to falter, because he tends to falter in these positions. But he is a very elite fighter. But
Experience
Magomed
now too.
Ankalaev, yes, he
He's
is
one
very
of those
experienced, much
guys
more
where
experienced.
he's one of those guys where we've seen him throughout the years go from, ooh, there's this fresh new kid Nikita Krylov with these weird kicks, but he's a light heavyweight, and we've seen him turn into a UFC vet, a dude who's seen a lot of different styles, um, and has had his fair share of ups and downs. He's in the UFC still after all this time, so it's been more ups than downs, but the downs have been pretty devastating. Um, and like you said, in some pretty pivotal career moments. So yeah, I think I go Ankalaev as well. But like you said, man, Krylov occasionally shows up.
Oh
And
yeah,
you're, oh my God, this is a guy that I thought I was going to see back when I saw him the first time.
yeah.
Um, when I saw him body, what's his name? He's the ginger man.
Oh, Ed Herman?
Yeah, shit like that, where you're just
Yeah.
like, he has finally showed up. And then,
Ed Herman of all people.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, it was devastating. It was a
Yeah.
devastating knockout win. So
Mhm.
it's just like, okay, we're not going to put him against the Ed Hermans anymore.
Yeah.
You separate him. He doesn't play nice with the Ed Hermans anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and then we have Montana De La Rosa taking on Bueno Silva. Who you got in this one?
Honestly, I don't care. Montana De La Rosa has been whatever. I'll take Rosa in this one. I'll go with De La Rosa. I'm not very familiar with Bueno Silva. I have watched Montana De La Rosa fight multiple times in the UFC now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, it's not a world beater. It's not jumping off the page or anything, but it's whatever. Honestly, I'm not sure why they're placed so highly on the card, but it's fine.
Yeah. I would imagine because we've seen De La Rosa so many times. I would imagine it's due to something with Bueno Silva. Maybe.
Not familiar with her.
Yeah, I am not either. But she's 23, number 23, according to the boys at Tapology. Um, moving on to the next one. Pedro Munoz taking on Jimmy Rivera. Talk about a banger, dude.
Yeah, rematch. These guys fought, I think
Mm-hmm.
2015 when they
Yep.
fought.
Yeah.
Both of these guys, interesting spots. They're guys that are essentially, I'm not gonna say they're locked into a position, but they have been kicked or kept out of the elite of the division by losses. But it's strange because like Pedro Munoz knocks out Cody Garbrandt, right? And we're like, all right, this guy's here. He's like the real deal. He's a top 5 bantamweight. Like, all right, let's see what this dude's got. And then he gets dominated by Aljo, and then he loses to Frankie Edgar. So it's like, okay, boom, you're back down the rankings a little bit. Jimmy Rivera, same situation. Dude was on a roll, was blasting through all these people, like headed straight for the title, and then like hits a stone wall, gets knocked out by Marlon Moraes, loses a couple more, and so these guys are both like locked into the number like 7 to 10 range in that division. But it will be a banger. Definitely be a banger of a fight. I lean towards. I don't know who I lean towards, honestly. It's a very, very evenly matched fight. Very evenly matched fight. I tend to not like Jimmy Rivera fights just because of his fighting style, but it should be a banger. Pedro Munoz brings the heat.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. In this one, it is really well matched, but at the same time, it's another one where I don't study the main card, so I can't tell you why. But
It doesn't
Munoz,
have real implications. It's like neither one of these
oh
guys are
no,
going to be.
it's who gets to stay. It's
Yeah,
who gets to stay on the road to possible. Everyone's heading on the highway towards the title. There's an exit coming up, but there's only one spot left.
yeah,
One of you guys got to get out on the exit and start taking on up and comers or not fight here anymore. I'm not saying it's that bad, especially for Munoz, but for Rivera, hey man, I can't think of a starker change of fortunes than his pre Marlon Moraes run and post Marlon Moraes run.
oh yes,
Um, you
night
know,
and day difference.
this is the thing. Like, probably the winner of this is going to face like a Ricky Simone,
Yeah,
someone like that, someone who is surging in the ranks of the unranked,
yeah,
and the loser is gonna end up going to war with Brian Kelleher.
yeah.
That's That's the
Yeah,
career
literally though. You're
trajectory
right.
here.
Yeah.
So, I like Munoz in this fight. I think he's a little bit more refined, and I think he's a little bit more cerebral.
Yeah. I
Granted,
agree. I will also lean Munoz.
yeah, granted, Rivera, you know, I just haven't seen the marked improvement that I think we would need to see for me to feel like he's going to turn it around.
I mean, Pedro Munoz just coming off of the 5-round split decision loss to Frankie Edgar that
It
many
was
people
so
thought he
close.
actually won.
It was so
So
close.
like, he loses to Aljo. That's fine. Guys fighting for a belt, which I actually favor him to win the belt right now. So Pedro Munoz, yeah, that's a guy that can still hang on and be elite in the division, the top, 7-5 guy. Jimmy Rivera, though, I'm like, dude, I can't even think of like what's the best Jimmy Rivera highlight? What's the best Jimmy Rivera finish? I can't tell you any of those things. He's just a guy. He's there. Is whatever.
He's got some good ones. He's got some good
They're
ones.
there somewhere.
They're
It's
in
just
there.
he doesn't have like a big fan base. There's not a lot of people like rallying behind him, wanting to see him get into these big fights. So he has an uphill battle in his career right now.
Yeah, true. So moving on, Alex Caceres. Talk about listen, man. This is uh if you looked at the records, if you just name me the records, I would think that a couple veterans of women's MMA were facing off. But instead we got 17-12-0 Alex Caceres versus 21-12-0 Kevin Kroom. You feel like Kevin Kroom should just retire right now. Keep that what do they call that? Where it's the same backwards as it is forwards?
Oh yeah, I can't remember. I'll think of it in a second.
Is it an anagram?
Yeah, that sounds right. Something like that. Yeah.
Let us know in the comments down below.
There we go. Let us know in the comments if you went to English.
Yeah, in the meantime, I'm going to take a real Stephen A. Smith stance right now. It is an anagram. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. All right. So we got the anagram, Kevin Kroom taking on Alex Caceres. Kevin Kroom, man, came out of nowhere.
Yeah. I am expecting this fight to be good. I expect a banger of a fight. Alex Caceres, he does deliver that. He delivers banger fights.
Oh, I expect a fight on the level of fun of like a regional MMA main event.
Yes,
or co-main event.
That's a gift and a curse because it's like,
oh yeah,
I'm constantly like, man, Alex Caceres just like, I'm like, do you have I feel like he has the body frame and the skill set if he like would really put it together and like focus on trying to fight a specific way, but he just like he gets into these like fun, fights and stuff, and then he gets submitted or something like, and I'm constantly just like, what are you doing? Like he always has an opportunity for like something to pull off something great, but he always finds a way to like lose at the last second. I'm like, man. But still, I'm going to lean Alex Caceres in this fight after all this, and I'm hoping that he has a good performance and it's a good banger of a fight.
Natural. This is the type of guy Caceres shines against. It's when Caceres has gone on a little 2, 3, 4 fight streak, usually 2. He ends up facing someone who's destined to be dubbed number 15. Like that's just unfortunately how it goes for Caceres. And I do feel like at this point, again, Alex Caceres is another guy where like we watched him start, and he was a guy where you're just like, damn, he's willing to go for it and take risks. He's willing to fight whoever. He's willing to fight between 3 different weight classes.
Yeah, he had a lot of potential.
Yeah, he has unorthodox striking that comes from weird angles. But unfortunately, you only get so far with being unorthodox. And then guys learn how to shut that down, and you don't have the rest of the scaffolding of basic technique. So by this point, though, Caceres has managed to turn himself into a very well-rounded mixed martial artist who is able to do it all at a competent elite level. He's not stellar anywhere, but his stand-up is better than it was, and it is elite. I would wager that that is how he defeats Kevin Kroon. If he wins, he's going to win it with strikes.
Yeah.
But now we move in the area of the card where I did study. So I'm going to ask your thoughts, and then I'll give briefly some of mine. Alex Hernandez, Thiago Moises. How do you feel about this one?
Should be a good fight. Moises is coming off of that fight that I actually thought he lost against old boy, blank Bobby Green. But Alexander Hernandez, also another guy, much in the vein of Alex Caceres, blasts onto the scene with all the potential in the world, right? Knocks out Dariush in his first fight, gets blasted up the rankings, and then hits hard times. He's had a rough go of it lately because he got thrown to the wolves too quickly. So for him, it's kind of all about, walking it back. Kid's young. He needs to kind of get his feet underneath him and then building him. So I am happy with this matchmaking. The Thiago Moiseses are the level of people that Alexander Hernandez should be fighting, not the Donald Cerrones and the Dariushs of the world. But I'm still not sold on Hernandez. I'm not sure that he can or will put it together. But we'll see. It should be a good fight, but I'm still on the fence about Hernandez in general.
Yeah. Hernandez has had 6 fights in the UFC. He's lost 2. Moises has had 5, and I believe he's also lost 2. Moises, like you said, is coming off Bobby Green, and the one that impressed me the most was his fight with Michael Johnson.
Yes.
And it impressed me in 2 ways. One, it impressed me because I watched that fight first. Naturally, I usually do it chronologically. So I watched that fight first because it kind of like I'm kind of able to parse out what areas guys are putting their focus in based on like how they improve in different areas. So he barely struck at all in the Michael Johnson fight. Didn't really throw much of a punch. He stayed out of danger. He tried to grapple. Michael Johnson wouldn't let him, and he more or less got bombed on for 5 minutes. I mean, he didn't get rocked or anything, but Michael Johnson controlled it. And then the second round started. Moises just sprinted out, shot for the leg, pulled guard on a leg lock, and then submitted Michael Johnson all within like the first 25 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever. So like his ability to get it done when he absolutely has to is there. And the fact that he could lock onto something like that in the second round when they're already sweaty, pretty damn good. But he had that fight against Bobby Green. Bobby Green is vet status as hell. So, able to counter a lot of the stuff Moises can do on the floor. But I'll tell you this, the difference between Moises's striking in the Michael Johnson fight and the Bobby Green fight is like night and day. Moises is really putting in work in his stand-up, at least, judging by those 2 fights, how different it is. Stark difference between Michael Johnson, where he seemed unwilling to really throw much of anything, worrying about the return fire, And the Bobby Green fight, he partially won that fight based on his striking. That said, though, Alex Hernandez looked awesome in his. So Hernandez lost to Cerrone. He won one or two in a row after that, and then got knocked out by Drew Dober in a late. Dober filled in late replacement.
Yeah, one of those was the Auburn Mercier fight. I remember that one.
Yeah, and then Hernandez's most recent bout was a bout against Chris Grutzmacher, where he, dude, talk about a badass finish. He hit him with this 4 or 5 piece combo and just slept Grutzmacher. Looked really good. I just think I think Hernandez gets it done. Really, because Hernandez is base in wrestling. And granted, if Moises can get him down, Hernandez struggles off his back. But Hernandez striking looked so good in his win against Grutzmacher. I think he got woken up a little bit by getting put to sleep by Dober. So, and then next, Angela Hill, Ashley Yoder. Do you know how long ago this fight got put together?
Like days. I mean, Angela Hill was just talking mad shit about Tisha Torres like 3 days ago.
Yeah, it got put together. If you are watching this now, it got put together 7 days ago. So
Angela Hill is the closest thing women have to a Donald Cerrone. I mean, she is ready to go at all times, whenever.
It's also a rematch.
Yes, a rematch. That's the thing she runs into all the time is she fights so frequently, and that division is so shallow. She's constantly having to fight rematches against girls. But Angela Hill always throws down great, entertaining fights. Neither one of them have world beater records. Angela Hill 12-9, Ashley Yoder's 8-6.
They're both just down to throw down, man.
That's it. It's
Yoder
like
is too. Yoder is
they're
too.
both just gonna like splang and bang, and it's just gonna be fun. Like
Yeah,
that's what
I think it happens very similar to the first fight. The first fight happened long enough ago. I believe it happened in Brian Stan's last month on commentary. I was watching it.
Brian Stan. Man,
Yeah, I was watching it yesterday. Brian Stan. It happened 7/17. So he retired from commentating August of that year. So it was like right on the tail end.
Yeah.
Yoder in that fight was able to get the takedown pretty consistently, but in classic Angela Hill fashion, she was able to get back up consistently. So I honestly I don't really predict anything much different happens here. Yoder is more or less the same. She has decent striking now, like she's improved her striking, but Angela Hill is still by far the better striker. But then again, Angela Hill gets taken down. So it'll be fun.
Reckless.
Yeah, the first one was fun. This one's going to be fun too. They're very small audience. These next ones, I had to make some concessions to get the last of the prelims to fit on this page. We have Alex Cowboy Oliveira taking on Ramazan Pura Magomedov.
Right out of the gate.
What's that?
And right out of the gate, we can skip that because that fight is canceled.
What?
Yep, that fight is canceled.
What? God damn it, dude.
Yeah.
That hurt.
Unfortunately.
You don't get time back. You don't get time back. I spent 45 minutes watching footage. I spent 45 minutes to an hour watching footage of that fight. I hunted for footage of Ramazan for way too long. Who got COVID?
I honestly don't remember. I have to do some. Yeah, I don't remember. We'll check after the show. If you know, tell us in the comments below.
Tell
But
us in the
anyway,
comments
just
below.
for the hell of it, I'll briefly, we'll just go over this fight because odds are they're going to rebook it.
Yeah.
Obviously, Kurmagomedov is who I'm picking in this fight. With a man with an 8-0, Kurmagomedov, I am absolutely taking him over Alex Oliveira.
Yeah, I wasn't. I didn't. I did
Really?
not. No, because because he's really good on the floor. He's very good on the floor, but it's nothing dominating in a way you'd imagine with a dude whose name ends Gamedov. You
Yeah, I
know?
was picking him solely off of name.
Yeah.
I don't know anything
It's
about him
not
at
like
all.
that. He is good. And his ground game is elite. And if he
Mm.
gets you there, it's trouble. But standing up, he's not super comfortable. He's especially not super comfortable with kicks, which Oliveira throws a lot of.
Oh, that's
And
dope.
Oliveira, his last few fights has seemed a little bit more serious and a little bit more measured, but while also being unpredictable. It's not that he's gotten away with what makes Brazilian cowboy. He's still a weirdo,
Oh, yeah.
but he is a calculated weirdo. And yeah,
He's definitely ascended to like veteran status at this
oh
point.
yeah. And I think that especially in MMA, that just is so important, man. There's so many like gaps in skill level, like a young prospect, TJ Laramie, that's the guy's name, who lost to Minner.
Yeah, TJ Laramie, I remember him.
Yes, that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. On paper, TJ Laramie wins every time, but Minner had 37 fights compared to Laramie's 10 or 11. Like
Yeah.
that experience is just so key. I mean, granted, I went 4-3 last week, so I could be totally wrong, but it is what it is. I study them all the
That's
same.
fighting, man.
I can't guarantee the results, but Alexis Davis, Sabina Mazo, is that one canceled too? You didn't tell me the rest of these four. I wasted half a day.
To my knowledge, the other three are still intact.
Okay, good.
I don't have much to say about any of them other than Alexis Davis, coming back off a big layoff, right? Multiple years that she didn't fight. Isn't that correct?
She lost 3 straight. Her last bout was in 2019.
Okay.
And Sabina Mazo has won 3 straight.
Okay, so that's fine. Alexis Davis is a known commodity to me, at least. Don't know anything about Mazo or the other 4 fighters on the prelims. So take it away, prelim man. Fill me in.
Bro, you gotta look into freaking anyway, I picked Davis. Based on 2 things. Mazo is long. She fights long, and she fights taller than she is. She's lanky, don't get me wrong, but I still don't. I think she's like 5'8". But they both normally fight. Mazo normally fights at 125 pounds. Davis had moved down to 125 pounds. For whatever reason, they agreed to 135. Davis is going to be very comfortable at 135. Mazo, I think Davis suffers a lot to make 125. So, yeah, I went with her based off her experience.
Cool.
I did. I went with her based off her experience, and also Sabina Mazo fights really well long, but she doesn't do well when people pressure her really hard. If you watch her fight against JJ Aldrich, granted, Mazo adjusted and was able to like stop Aldrich from getting on the inside the way she was, but 135-pound Alexis Davis, I feel like, is going to be able to hit a little bit harder than Aldrich and also grapple better than JJ Aldrich was able to. I don't think Aldrich ever got a grappling going against Mazo. So, yeah, Alexis Davis in that one. Ronnie Lawrence, we last saw on week 5. think it's week 5 of the Contender Series 2020. He beat hot prospect Jose Johnson. Ronnie Lawrence had, according to him, the worst weight cut of his career before that Contender Series bout. And you would not be able to tell because he set such a high pace. And in that fight, at least, he was able to wrestle. He was able to take down Johnson at will. And he uses kicks really, really well. He throws really awesome spinning kicks and side kicks, and he'll even throw a hook kick in there sometimes. Vince Cachero, if you ever watched Fight Tips YouTube channel, he's been on there quite often. Cachero made his UFC debut against, was it Jamal Emmers? I think Jamal Emmers. And Jamal Emmers just showed out, man. It was on 145 pounds, and Emmers just did anything he wanted to Cachero. Granted, Cachero took it on, it was like 6 days. It was no time at all, and a weight class up. And Cachero was tough as hell. He moves forward, and he likes to use his hands. And he really moves forward. He like constantly moves forward, not quickly, but he like plods forward, and he has really solid boxing. I just think that Lawrence is going to be able to use his kicks well from the outside because Cachero doesn't. He has kicks, but he doesn't really throw them that actively. At least in the footage I had, he doesn't throw them that actively, not as actively as Lawrence. So I see that Lawrence being able to kick from the outside, and then as Cachero inevitably walks in or rushes in to use his boxing, he'll be there to get taken down, and he doesn't have the best work off his back. So I picked Lawrence off of that. And then Dustin Jacoby versus Maxim Grishin. Jacoby is on his second UFC stint. He fought twice as a middleweight years and years ago. He was a really young guy when he was in the UFC at middleweight. He went 0-2 and was cut, and then battled his way back and fought on week 1 or week 5. I'm getting Lawrence. I can't remember which week Lawrence fought on and which week he fought on, but one of them's week 1, one of them's week 5. Jacoby, definitely, if you want to see, if you're at all a sadist, I'll put it like this: if you're at all a sadist, watch his Contender Series fight against Tai Flores. Tai Flores, like, I think Herb Dean was the referee. I thought Tai Flores was going to die in the second round. But he got punched back to life and then did decent in the third round. But anyway, Dustin Jacoby has really come into his own. And since winning the Contender Series spot, he then made his debut against, I can't remember, but he kicked the guy's leg out from under him. Essentially, guy couldn't stand on it anymore. Jacoby did a really veteran move. Sometimes guys will they'll drop other guys with a leg kick and then choose to
follow them to the ground.
To ground and pound them like they're hurt to the head.
Yeah.
In Jacoby's UFC debut, he hurt guy's leg. Guy fell against the cage. Jacoby stood above, kind of hovered over him, hammer fisted, threw some shots. And then when he realized, okay, I'm not going to get this guy out, he stood back up. He measured the guy as he stood back up. Straight right, uppercut, KO, done. It was really, really beautiful work. And again, to anyone out there, whether he wins or loses today, I recommend you watch that. It's a really, really great work. Maxim Grishin is a guy that Stipe brought in to prepare for DC. He is a counter striker veteran of the sport. He has 40 fights under his belt. And it's really an interesting matchup because Dustin Jacoby doesn't often fall on the disadvantage side of like the experience equation. Because one thing I forgot to mention, Dustin Jacoby is a former Glory kickboxer as well. So he got ousted from the UFC and then went into Glory kickboxing, where he actually ended up he lost a decision, but he contended for a belt. So his stand-up is rock solid. Grishin, his stand-up is also rock solid. He lost a decision in his UFC debut to Marcin Tybura. But it was a good fight. It displayed some really great cage work from Grishin. But really, bread and butter of Grishin's game is hanging back, having that relaxed European kind of counter-strikey European kickboxing. And it's a really interesting matchup on the feet. I ended up going with Jacoby based on his volume and his power. And also Jacoby mixes in southpaw and orthodox, so he'll just kind of switch whenever he feels like it. And I just feel like Maxim Grishin may not be able to be as smooth as normal. So I don't know. That's one that I totally was just unsure of, just because it's so well matched. But yeah, those are the prelims.
Sweet.
And let's just get to some odds and ends here quick. I think we're about to wrap it up, but we'll get some odds and ends out of our way. Let's go back here. If next title shot isn't in the cards, Stephen Thompson Eyes fights with Colby Covington or Nate Diaz. I'm down for both of those fights. How about you?
Yes, I am. It's a strange position we've kind of discussed where Usman has basically beaten everyone in the division, and all these fights that we're talking about for Usman, whether it be Colby or Masvidal or even Leon, they're all rematches. Usman has fought all these people inside the UFC, and he's beaten them, except for Wonderboy Thompson.
Yep.
Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, sitting up at number 5, is basically the lone person outside of old homeboy that just came up from lightweight, Michael Chiesa, that has not fought Usman. So to me, the most interesting fight that you can make in that division is Usman versus Wonderboy, because I have not seen it. I don't know how that fight goes. So to me, I would love to see anything. I would love to see Wonderboy get the next title shot. But if not, a fight against Colby Covington or Nate Diaz would both be excellent. I would be down for either one of those.
In the era of people, especially this modern incantation of the welterweight division, the back-to-back fights with Wonderboy Thompson makes Woodley look so much more badass. Because talk about a tougher fight to get ready for one, because it's not going to be a war. It's just not going to be, because Stephen Thompson is too elusive. He also has a tendency to, when he's successful, make people look horrible or look boring. And so in a modern welterweight division where seemingly everyone wants to get paid, but no one wants to fight anyone, it's a miracle that Wonderboy ever got a shot at a title, let alone 2 back-to-back. So I just, in hindsight, the Woodley welterweight era, especially as all the current welterweights play this politic bullshit, makes me appreciate Woodley's title reign even more.
Yeah, and it kind of sucks for Wonderboy, because Wonderboy was largely written off after the title fight losses to Woodley. I mean, let's not forget, not that long ago, just like 2-3 years ago, Wonderboy beat Masvidal. Wonderboy has a win over Masvidal in the UFC. Just happened. And then they gave him they have him fighting these up-and-comers. They're like, all right, go and fight Jeff Neal and go and fight, these young up-and-coming guys. Where to me, like, I think Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Usman is an incredibly interesting style matchup. I mean, looking at that fight, I'm like, how is Usman going to approach that fight? So yeah, in all honesty, I want Wonderboy being pushed in the direction of a title shot. So I'm totally on board with what he's saying. If he does not get the next title shot, which it's looking like they're going to go with the Masvidal rematch, have them both coach the Ultimate Fighter, whatever. If that's the case, then I want Wonderboy's next fight to be a number one contender fight.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, like, yeah, at the end of the day, it is whatever. But also, guys like Thompson are not getting younger.
No
one's getting younger. So, like, it is
38 now.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Exactly. It's time to go. Like, I really want this guy to get one more crack before it's said and done. So I would like, and also, all the other fighters know, like, real recognize real. But in the game, you pretend you've never heard of the guys you're actually afraid of fighting. And no one's talking about Stephen Thompson.
Dude, no one in that division is calling out Wonderboy. No one.
No one.
No. He is the real dark. I don't want to call him a dark horse, but like it is what he is. I mean,
of course he is. He's the dark horse. He is an undercover dark horse.
Yeah.
That's what he is. He is an established name that's also a dark horse. He is even more of a dark horse contender than like Leon Edwards.
Yes, absolutely.
Or at this point, because a dude at welterweight was willing to step up and fight someone, Bilal Muhammad.
Yeah.
Is another one. This kind of relates to a story we covered a few weeks back. Barboza was talking about, release me or let me fight out my deal, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he signed a new bout. He signed a new multi-fight deal. So good for him. I hope it was everything he hoped for and more.
Yep, I agree.
UFC champ Frank Mir faces Antonio Tarver in boxing match on Ben Askren versus Jake Paul undercard.
Whatever. Just whatever. I'm like,
I'm loving this right now where boxing right now, I feel like is having a real big, like they've been having an identity crisis for a while where it's just like, where do we fit in the modern sports? Like, are we now the combat equivalent of NASCAR? Like, we don't, like, our fans absolutely love it, but there's really no reach over appeal. So their way of doing this now is to like try and get these quote unquote crossover fans who I've never met. They apparently exist, but I've never heard of them. I've never even met, like, granted, I'll watch Glory sometimes. I've watched Karate Combat. But like, I've even watched Top Rank before. But I'm not going out of my way to watch any of them.
No.
I'm not like I'm a combat sports fan. I'm an MMA fan.
Yeah.
When I say I don't give a shit about any other sports, that also includes other combat sports. Yeah. I'm not just a shit-eating wild man for violence. I like, but to refocus on this, boxing right now is doing this really great bait and switch, which is, we're going to prove that boxers can beat MMA fighters by getting guys who specialize in an entire area that boxing isn't allowed to go in. And then
they're all old and retired. They're getting these people out of retirement.
Retired because their bodies couldn't do it anymore.
Yes. So here's the thing. Basically, at the most boiled down level, what Jake Paul and his brother have found a way to do here is to exploit the mismanagement of what boxing is right now. the whole structure of boxing has been eliminated to the point that there is no structure in boxing. Boxing is just they're looking around and they're like, all right, what's a big fight we can put on that people pay attention to? Jake Paul and his brother can run in here and they're going, look, all we're here to do is to pick that's the other thing. There's no matchmakers, there's no anything. The Paul brothers are the one who are picking their opponents for these things. Jake Paul calls up Ben Askren, so their objective here is to pick an opponent that is the easiest for them to beat, while they can also pander to the largest audience. So this whole thing, there's no legitimacy to any of it. All they're doing is they're going, okay, let's find old retired MMA fighters that are bad at boxing, and let's put them in a cage with a young 20-something-year-old kid that is, been boxing in my garage, and we're gonna have this boxing match, but we're gonna put it on pay-per-view and we're gonna sell it and we're gonna make all this money. But there's no anything. It's all
No.
I don't want to use the word fake. It's not fake, but it's like it's meaningless. All this stuff is totally meaningless.
Yeah, it's like a rough and rowdy card with people getting paid more than $20. Like it's the equivalent of a rough and rowdy card. That is what it is. And it's all
I can say about it is good on Frank Mir and Ben Askren for getting a paycheck. Hopefully they do not get brutally embarrassed in the process of collecting that.
Frank Mir is going to get hurt. Right? Like at the very least, and this is one thing that I think I can't remember who was talking about it. It may have been Ariel, and it's something that I've thought for a while, and he put it really well, which is because of that loss to Masvidal, there's been this revisionist history done on the entirety of Askren's career, where he always sucked and could never really fight or whatever. The reality is Askren got knocked out one time against Masvidal. It's not like he had this deterioration of his chin. He ate a rocket of a flying knee because he shot a terrible, predictable double leg immediately as the fight started. Jake Paul hits pretty hard, but I don't think he's going to be able to knock Askren out. I don't think Askren's going to be able to knock him out. I also would be interested to know which commission is running the card, because if it's not a commission, then you best believe that referee is going to be like the one in Maymac. Anytime they tied up, immediately. Nope.
Yeah. No.
Whereas if you watch normal boxing, dudes will stay tied up for a while.
Oh,
for whatever reason, whenever an MMA fighter steps in the ring, these refs don't play, no contact, except for fists on face.
No, it's my excitement and expectations are just as low as they could possibly.
I have no excitement.
It's not even like going into the old man Tyson fight, right? You're like, oh man, maybe old man. It's like maybe old man Tyson can, we've seen him. He can still throw bombs. Maybe he's going to land heavy. I'm not expecting Ben Askren to knock anybody out. I'm not expecting Ben Askren to get knocked out. I'm just expecting a sloppy boxing fight that's going to suck and cost me money. That's all I'm expecting from that.
No, it's not going to cost me money.
Well, obviously, but it's going to cost me money. But yeah, no, I couldn't give a shit less. I'm actually honestly surprised that this is even going to go through. I figured at this point they would have been pulling the plug like that Floyd fight, but whatever.
An odd lack of interest. So on this day 9 years ago, Frankie Edgar, Benson Henderson battled it out in a classic in Saitama Super Arena. And I included this just to show that some people on Reddit just are assholes. Why would look at the upvote percentage? For what reason could this be downvoted? There's nothing controversial. There's nothing bad. It's just like, hey, do you remember this dope fight that happened 9 years ago? Dude, and 13% of the people who voted on it were just like, fuck you.
No, dude,
I hate that happened 9 years ago.
there's some whacks on some whack people on our MMA for sure.
In the last of the slides, very interested, very, very interested in that fight. And actually it makes sense. It's almost an overcorrection for like, I did not know this, but Northcutt, when he went to 1, because he ended his UFC career A with wins and B at 170. And
Yep.
so when he entered into 1FC, he was like, well, I'm a welterweight. And 1FC was like, oh, cool. Did you know welterweight's 185 pounds? And then he was like, okay, well, I guess everyone else is not cutting weight. So I guess I'll just come in what I walk around at. Dude, 1FC is a little shady, right? Like, I don't know if there's an actual scale at their weigh-ins. I don't know if, like, they're just not very transparent in a lot of what they do. So anyway, Northcutt gets his face broken. Then he's like, hey, I think maybe I need to move down a weight class. So he did. And he'll be fighting Shinya Aoki, who I believe has been fighting at lightweight or featherweight, which is 155.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I think that this could go real bad for one of them.
Oh, yeah.
For either one. It could go really, really bad for either one.
Man, from a broader perspective on this, when I saw this, I was like, dude, if I'm any MMA fighter, particularly one that's in the UFC, that his contract's about to end and I'm about to go into free agency, right? There is no way in hell I'm signing with 1FC, because you remember a couple of years ago, right? There's this big push into free agency. All these guys in MMA start running out and go testing the market, right? One flashes some big dollar signs. Your Eddie Alvarez's, your Demetrius Johnsons, your Sage Northcutts are all like, dope, man. Sounds like a good deal. Let's get it. Okay, one clearly, to me at this point, has taken the stance of, these UFC guys that we get over here, we are going to smash them, and we are going to prove that our guys are better than them. Because like this matchmaking, and I'm like, what is going on over here? The matchmaking, dude, just Sage Northcutt alone, the Cosmo fight, and then Shinya Aoki, I am like, what are you guys doing? You all clearly do not want your UFC guys to do well. You want them being like crushed. I mean, good Lord.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
the exposure that, like, basically DJ and Eddie Alvarez have evaporated from the face of the earth. I mean, I haven't seen or heard from them. They fight incredibly infrequently. Eddie Alvarez got that brutal fight. He messed his eye all up. In the end, I'm like,
really
man, you all probably made some good. Yeah, like you probably made some good money, but like, I would not advise any current UFC fighters to go to one. It looks like a career graveyard.
Oh, dude, it is. It is. I was reading an article. I can't remember. It was from last year or the year before, and they were able to talk to some like what do they call them? Not off the record, but like anonymous sources. They were saying the contracts that you sign are like career contracts. Like you do not fight out of a 1FC contract. Which is why Demetrius Johnson, when he's asked, he's just like, yeah, I'm never fighting for UFC again.
Yeah.
And that's a matter probably of his preference, but from what multiple insiders have said, that's also totally by design. Yeah. So, I was going to say about this matchup that, Northcutt, it could either end very bad and violently for Japanese legend Shinya Aoki, because this ain't Dream Aoki.
Oh, he's an old man at this point.
This is old man Aoki.
Yeah.
So he has less of a chin on him. Granted, he can still crank your joints the wrong way, just like he could, and always has.
That is what I'm concerned about. Is
Oh,
Sage
dude,
Northcutt getting
imagine
like
Sage
submitted
Northcutt.
bad?
Oh my God! Imagine if Sage Northcutt gets his knee torn apart.
Dude, his knee
2
or an
years
arm
off,
broken or something? Like
two
after
years
you just
off,
had
and
your
then
face blasted off? Like,
dude,
oh my
middle
God.
finger Aoki comes back. Middle
Dude.
finger Aoki, where he broke. Oh man, was Togi?
Yeah.
Whatever. He had the multicolored hair where the
Yep.
guy's tapping. He's just like, fuck it.
Yep.
Broke his arm and then ran around the ring. Was just like,
Yep.
it was great. Check that. Yeah, you kids. You know,
Make
I was
history for
I
you.
was I was in the prime of my time when that fight happened. So if you're in the prime of your time right now, look that up. Dream. Look up any event for Dream. They had some really great ones. Eddie Alvarez's some of his best fights are over in Dream, and there's no way to watch them. That's also how I feel about. Do you remember Sengoku?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Victory Road. What's his name? George Santiago had that absolutely incredible 5-round war with I can't remember his name. It's a Japanese fighter. Dude, you can't. He had 2 of them with that guy, and you just can't find those events anywhere, man. It really sucks. I really wish there was a way to watch those fights. It's the same thing. Well, no, Risen is now on YouTube. You can find like Risen uploads all of the bouts the next day or the next week or something.
Sweet. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So like all of the last Rising card, which the one where I stayed up and hung out on the channel, that was their last one. So all those are as up to date as Ryzen is, and they upload them all to their YouTube. All right, the last one before we get out of here: Holly Holm to fight Juliana Pena at UFC Fight Night on May 8th. This is really unexpected matchmaking, in my opinion. This is the type of matchmaking that convinces me that Holly Holm wants to stick around and really make a real run again at a title.
Holly Holm is always making a run at a UFC title.
Yeah, you're right.
Literally, like it's a cycle loop of like, what else is she gonna do? She's literally in both these weight classes, both 2 weight classes. The champion is the same person who's already knocked her out. What is she gonna do? Right? She's gonna get 1, maybe 2 wins, and they're gonna give her a title shot because she's the biggest name there. They'll do an Amanda Nunes rematch just for the hell of it. Whatever. Holly Holm is the biggest, I would say, second biggest name in women's MMA that the UFC has. So she will always be in preferable spots. But it's a cool fight. I'm not jumping for joy over it or anything, but it's fine.
Well, Brad, that's our show. That's it.
Special Sunday edition, not Sunday, Saturday edition.
Saturday. I'll try and get this out a little bit earlier than normal. I'll probably try and get it out around. Hopefully, you are seeing this around 10:30 a.m. If not, I'm a liar. But yeah. We'll. Thanks for watching the Saturday edition. And if you like what you saw, as always, like, subscribe, comment down below if you got any questions, comments, or the concerns. If you want to see more of what I do, you can see me at filmfightfreaks.com for prelim previews. You can see what Evan's up to with his post-event fights to make posts, which I always think are really good. Brad, where will you be?
I will be right here watching them fights. Also on Instagram, monitoring the Instagram page. Check us out on there. Sparring Partners Pod on Instagram.
That's right. Yes. Sparring Partners Pod on Instagram. And well, That's the show. See you guys next week. Well, actually, not next week. This is so late. We'll see you guys Thursday.
Couple days.
Yeah.